Finally, this week to a wannabe footballer who wasn't very good but became known throughout Europe as a former Paris Saint-Germain striker. Well, to be fair to Greg Akcelrod, he was a former Paris Saint-Germain striker, albeit that he played for PSG's fifth team. It all started when he was a teenager, when he set up a website for fun, passing himself off as a top footballer and pasted in his own name into reports about more prestigious players. But actually, as he's been telling me, the roots of his football ambition go back further to a much sadder time in his life.
When I was 10 years old, I was playing in a small club, and my dad came to see me for the first time in his life. And when he saw me, we lost 4-0. After the game, he told me, Greg, you are so bad in football. You are lazy. I don't want to see you anymore playing football in my life. And I said, Dad, you cannot do this to me because it's my only pleasure in the week is to see my friends and play football with me. So I say nothing. My dad forbid me to play from 10 years old to 18 years old. But I was thinking, as soon as I am adult, I will play professional football one day.
So you got to 18, you left home. I guess then you thought, okay, I've got some freedom now. What happened then?
So I decided to create a fake website for fun to send to my friends. And it was the beginning of internet. And everybody laughed about this because it was like real website. But for me, it was for fun. And when I was 18, I started to play again in amateur club. And I sent letters to the biggest club in England, to Chelsea, Manchester City, Arsenal, and club in second division on third league. And one club, Swindon Town, sent me a letter and invite me to play for 2 days on trial with the first team. Because I think they put my name on internet and they check my website and they think it was a real website. So I went to Swindon, but I was very, very bad. The goalkeeper, he make one big shoot and I take the ball in the face. So everybody laughed in the stadium. And after 50 minutes, they put me away.
And you became known as a former Paris Saint-Germain striker.
Yes, in fact, I really signed for Paris Saint-Germain, but I signed for the last team in amateur level, the 5 team of Paris Saint-Germain. The worst of the worst in 15 league when you only play against people who cannot even make one pass. One day, I went to see a friend who worked in the shop of Paris Saint-Germain at Parc des Princes, the stadium of PSG. And she saw me with bad attitude and she said, how are you, Greg? You look bad. I said, yes, I'm bored of football. I think I have no future. And she said, Greg, I have a good surprise for you. The boss is not here. I have the pass. Do you want to visit the stadium? But 10 years ago, nobody visits the stadium. It's forbidden. So I say, yes, of course, I'll come with you. But let me first buy a jersey for my brother with my name on the back. But in fact, it was not for my brother. It was for the marketing because I knew if I can make one picture with Paris on the stadium of Paris Saint-Germain on the pitch, it was totally crazy. So I went with her. I visit the stadium. I wear the Paris Saint-Germain jersey. And after I say, can you make few pictures for me? It's for my family. But in fact, I used this picture to put on my resume, to send to club and to send to agents. So everybody really think I was first team or reserve team player.
What was the highlight, your best memory of your adventures around the world?
In fact, my highlight when I was with CSKA Sofia, who was a club playing the Champions League in 2009 in June, they invited me for a few days for a trial. And the coach told my agent that he wanted to sign me 3 years contract, 15,000 a month. So for me, it was incredible. So on Sunday evening, I talked to all my friends. But on Sunday evening, some fan of CSKA Sofia, they went to a forum of Paris Saint-Germain to ask, we will transfer Akcelrod. Is it a good player? What do you think about him? But all the fans of Paris Saint-Germain, they don't know about me. So they totally destroy me. They say, be careful, he's a fake player, it doesn't exist, etc. They realize that I don't play at all for Paris Saint-Germain reserve team.
There's also a serious side. I mean, do you feel guilty about wasting the time of all these clubs? And also, I mean, did you make money out of all your trials or any of your trials?
In fact, I always pay my flight ticket. I always pay my hotel. So same for CSKA Sofia. It's me who pay my flight ticket. So no one club never pay for me, so I never take €1 of nobody. Trials is like this. There is trials all the time in every club in the world. 99% you have average player. Yes, I have few regrets, but listen, I didn't play football from 10 to 18 years old. I only play my garden. Of course, I didn't take money. I will not recommend players to do like me, but I write this book so the players, they can see how to become football player.
Greg Akcelrod, and the book which he mentions is his autobiography, which came out in January. Heather, how do you see this story? Should we be censorious about it and criticize him for wasting people's time? Or, is this a guy who was denied football? Imagine that. You couldn't play football between 10 and 18. And he just had this really bad itch that he had to scratch.
Well, I was reading this story and I thought that this was going to be a bit of a sadder story, but I think that Greg seemingly has, a good humor about it. And you know what, Manny? I've heard of fake news, especially recently in America. I've heard of fake news, but I've never heard of a fake footballer. So I have never had to, disguise as a quality footballer. I guess it just, came out naturally. But have you guys ever heard of imposter syndrome? Imposter syndrome is when like a very capable person all of a sudden feels like they don't belong, like they're a fraud, like all their successes have been an accident. I've had waves of feeling like that. I have experienced imposter syndrome, but I've never actually been an imposter, I don't think.
Pat, on the subject of fake players, you'll remember Ali Dia, who was at Southampton in the mid-1990s. He was signed after a recommendation by someone purporting to be Georges Weah. And Dia came on as a substitute and went off as a substitute in the same game after it became obvious that he really wasn't as good as Graham Souness has been led to believe he was. How quickly would it take you to spot an imposter?
Can I give you two answers, Manny? Because when I went to Motherwell as chief executive, the previous owners had bought 6 players, obviously as a job lot, and in amongst them was one who I thought, you're not a football player. and I went to him one day at training. I'd watched him for a little while, and I went up to him and I said, like, where did we buy you from? And he told me, and it was a big German club. And I said to him, and you played for the first team? And he went, yeah. And I went, that's amazing. He said, well, there is one thing. I said, what's that? He said, it was the first team for the basketball team. He didn't play football. And we bought him. I could not believe it. So that was number one. So I seen it immediately, to answer your second question. And it's pretty easy to see it because, so if you're a good player, you can get quite close to coining the pros. But your physique usually gives you away. Positional sense, just positional sense. I tell this to many people to understand. I play in a charity called Football Aid, right? And I help them out a great deal. And every time they've got a player, a real pro playing for either side. And every time I tell the other player, who's probably playing for his first time, with these guys that are all amateurs, give you one piece of advice. See, when you pass the ball to a guy, don't run for a 1-2 because it ain't coming back. And they look at me as if I'm mad. And I'm thinking, don't get it. So they go, and then 15 minutes later, John Collins did this with me. After 15 minutes, he understood. Because you play a ball and you go for a 1-2, and a pro will always give you it back. Always give you it back if you're in space. But not if you're not a pro. They'll try the 70-yard ball that they saw in Match of the Day the night before, and they can't do it. And that's how you tell the difference.
I suppose as a former basketball player, he would have been right at home in the game that we were talking about at the start of the programme, Everton versus Tottenham, wouldn't he?
I think if he played in that Motherwell Aberdeen game I was telling you about, the 6-5 game, that would have explained a great deal, wouldn't it?
So, yeah, it's all a question of being in the right place at the right time. Well, assuming that nobody taps me on the shoulder and says, well, are you sure you're a broadcaster? I'll be back at the same time next week, as will these two. Until then, from all of us, goodbye.
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 World Football is a BBC Sport production for the BBC World Service.